found the suicide note and I started crying. I could not read it from below the phone. I just started crying.
Where did you find it?
I found it in her drawer. I don't remember what I was looking for.
Under a book.
Under a book.
What did it say?
And it said that she was going to. It said that she was going to kill herself, and that.
What it said is, I'm sorry I had to do this. I love you both, Lyle and Eric. I love your father. I just can't seem to deal with my own problems anymore. I want you to go ahead and have the life I thought I wanted for you and all the things I've told you. And I'm really sorry it had to happen this way, but I have to do this. And blah, 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 blah. And at first he thought it was just that my mother was leaving my father. And it was not until I told him that, don't get excited, but there's a strong possibility that what she's talking about, she's going to kill herself, that he became hysterical. Because at first he thought, well, Mom, just leave the dad and wait for grandparents. And now it was any day.
Any second. And
so,
it was also the fact that
at that point I was living alone in New Jersey in a mansion that they had left. And that was a tough time. But then I immediately approached my mother. And this is really aggravating. Well, because I was alone. And there wasn't,
well, I think that the reason...
It's a tough time because it was so far away from what people thought that you couldn't tell anybody. I couldn't tell my aunt. What were we going to do about my mother's suicide thing? I mean, you couldn't do anything like that, and it was just...
The reason why she didn't, I in fact believe at that time, was because she couldn't.
She couldn't what?
She couldn't kill herself. I mean, you could take a gun and you could put it behind you, somebody could pull the trigger. It takes an amazing amount of energy. So she was sort of drained from learning about the affair, which was right after she learned about the affair, because I was listening in the next room, and for months and months and months, I would have to listen to my mother crying in the house. I would come home, my mother would be crying upstairs, and I would just be watching TV downstairs, and I would just hear the sobbing, and I couldn't go up and say what was wrong. And I would, because I didn't have that kind of relationship. I just never. I wish I had, and I look back on it now, and I wish I had that kind of relationship. But I remember when we first moved out and we were living in the condominium, right, I would hear right through the wall and I would listen about how they were about to have a divorce, and how my dad was telling my mom that they should not have a divorce. And I was just, that year, we were just going right through it. And from listening to her, she wasn't strong enough.
What year was that?
It was the year we first moved out.
That was a few years ago.
Yeah, it was 1987.
Well, when you ended up killing your mom, did you feel like you were sparing her? I mean, I know she was horribly depressed, and she was totally dominated by your dad. She was like a shell of the person. She had no identity or strength left anymore. You had been, I know that you had been responding to her as I think almost like a person who's become sort of pitiful. I mean, that's a strong word, but is that how you felt?
Well, no, we were doing almost in my mom's case something that first of all, there was no way, never could she live without my father.
That was something that we had to really, it was a big thing holding us back from killing my father, is that we thought that we would just kill Dad and eliminate the father. And see, the first step, when I found out the first suicide note, and then it got worse and worse, but was okay, I'll now support my mother. Eric and I decided we would rally behind my mother instead of my father, who could take care of himself, and would understand, he would probably want us to rally against for my mother, because all along his view was, you protect your mother, she's your mother, you only have one mother. I may be your father, but your father is not as close to you as your mother. And that was his view. And even though I was never as close to my mother as Eric in the early years, and I sort of rallied behind my dad because we had more in common and so on. But so I decided, okay, I'm going to rally behind my mother. And I had a conversation with her. I wrote her a long letter saying if she ever wanted to leave Dad, whatever, she could move to Princeton. I'd live with her. She wouldn't be alone. no problems. There wouldn't be any big fight over custody of the children. We'd go with her if she wanted, and visit back and forth, whatever she wanted. And that didn't work because she cut me short immediately. There was no discussion. It was, Lyle, you're fabricating this. I started out by not wanting to really deal with her problems. I didn't want to know I found the note. It wouldn't be as effective. So I started to go through all the things that aggravated me about Dad and how he was suppressing myself and all these things. And she kept saying, no, she wouldn't even let me do that. She was, this is something you're fabricating. This, you know that really you bring up a lot of this upon yourself, Lyle. You don't realize this, and you don't realize that. And it was just not true. She was the worst psychologist ever. She was not, in my opinion, a good open mother like she wanted to be. I felt that at that point she was so tainted by the fact that things were so horrible between her and Dad that she couldn't come out and say, you know, you're right, I'm having the same problems with my husband that you're having with your father, and maybe we should talk about it, like a mother should. Even just out of curiosity of wanting to discuss something. She would rather discuss my girlfriend than my relationship with my father. And she was definitely with Dad on that issue. And so it was a dead issue within 5 minutes. I don't want to talk about it. Nope, you're wrong. You're overreacting. If you want to leave the family and you want to go off on your own, fine.
You had no one to really talk with us about it, except Eric.
Except Eric. And I sort of just said, all right, fine. She doesn't want to get divorced. Things seemed to almost get better. And then all of a sudden they just turned for the worse. And I think they turned for the worse after she found out that she had made a decision that she couldn't take it anymore and that Dad didn't love her anymore. And
is that the affair?
I believe it was after she found out about one of the affairs, like the main affair, that it had been 8 years long or whatever, or that maybe after she found out there had been more than one. It was some point where she just decided, boom, no way did he ever love me. I was wrong thinking that he loved me and he was just doing this because he needed to. And at this point I had stopped trying to help her divorce, so she didn't have my support anymore. I was, gradually being separated from her because she was no longer someone I could talk to about anything. Anything I talked to her about, I would talk to your father.
Did she actually get angry for bringing up stuff that was negative?
She was very cold. My mother was always very good in stressful situations. Very calm. This was obviously something that was an extreme stress for her. If Eric would have walked in the room when she was crying, or when I did, frequently, she would stop crying. I don't want to talk about it. It's my own problem. Blah, blah, blah.
She wouldn't let you in at all?
No. Very matter of fact also about stressful things, which would mean if I started saying, which I would do would be to try to get her emotional and get her emotions out. Hey, I'm with you. I think we should leave Dad. He's crazy. He's doing this and this to you. It's obvious. He's doing this to me. Her reaction is, no, I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me. I think you're overreacting, Lyle. Here's all the things that Lyle, he bought you this car. He really wanted you to do this. He wanted you to do that. He's a loving father. I don't know what you're talking about. I think we should stop thinking about it.
How angry was that?
And, what?
How angry was that?
To me? Oh, it was extremely angering to me because she was putting me in a position to defend the things that my father was doing to me, and that wasn't even supposed to be the issue. It was the things that I had to get past first, the things he was doing to me, to get to the things he was doing to her, and there was just no way.
You couldn't even get her to acknowledge that he was doing anything to her or to you. I mean, she wouldn't even, you were trying to protect her, and you were trying to say, Mom, we know what he's doing, and you were trying to tell her that he was doing the same thing to you and to her and to Eric, and she wouldn't acknowledge he was doing any of it and turned it around and actually blamed you as if you were an ingrate.
Right.
And she basically invalidated all of your perceptions and everything that you knew that was going on. She told you wasn't happening, got angry at you, blamed you, turned on you, and you ended up trying to protect her and getting punished and rejected and as a person and getting told you were a bad guy, when really what you were trying to do is save her from what your dad was doing to you and your mom. I mean, that's what I'm hearing.
That's it. And I didn't try as much as I wished I would have tried. I didn't know a lot of it. I found out a lot of it later on, I found out more and more and more, and in my opinion, she got worse and worse and worse. And but for a while, I was traveling so much, I was away from the picture. I'd only hear about it from Eric. Oh, my mom freaked out about this. Oh, Mom burst out crying about this, and mentioned Louisa again, and couldn't trust Dad here or there. And my reaction is, I don't want to be involved. It's a situation I can't help. And the alcohol, the drugs she would bring up to me, it was a sign that it was getting worse. And she would finally come to me and go, "You don't understand how much stress I'm under. I take 13 pills a day. I drink. Be careful about this Princeton issue or whatever. I'm not handling it well. I don't want to hear about this or that." And but there was no way I could open up to her about the real issues. I knew that she was seeking help, and I was hoping that it would help. From my girlfriend reading the letters that I found afterwards and before, her conclusion, and it seems to be a lot of my relatives' conclusion, is that my mother could possibly have staged the whole thing and killed both of them herself, because she was unable to kill herself. And so she had somebody, she just said, "Okay, kill us at some point." And that's their feeling. I mean, obviously, it's my feeling, I know what happened, but I could see how they would believe that, reading those letters. I kept thinking it over, almost as if it was true, almost as if I was like an instrument of hers in killing herself. That's where we sort of feel like, you mentioned before, that we were doing her and us a favor in putting her out of her misery, really, in that she could kill herself at any moment. And our reaction was, we knew that if she killed herself, my father was in trouble. We would physically not be able to handle that, because she was really a helpless victim. And I saw her going through her own.
I had in my mind that I would be the turning point. If my mother killed herself, I would hate my father for life, and there'd be almost no point back.
And I didn't know how my mother could live with it, and I tried not to think about it. Thinking about it was a very painful thing. That's why I don't have dreams about it now, and I don't think about it now. It's a serious sore spot, my mother, and that whole issue, because, even if I think about it for a moment, I say to myself, Dad was having an affair the whole time. He was saying he was out late working, and she was at home bearing the fact that she couldn't be with her husband, they couldn't go to the dinner parties and so on, to take care of his kids and do all the things he wanted her to do, and she worked like a dog doing that, thinking she was helping their relationship for a better time. And then he would come home and say he's tired from working late and therefore didn't want to go to dinner parties, and she would cry about that, but her strength came from the fact that he was doing it for the family and for her, and so she was going to sacrifice. And then she realized that the 20 years of sacrifice was for nothing. He was going around with other women and so on, and that her whole basis for being able to go through it all was really a falsehood. And that I could see how, boom, you want to kill yourself. Can't handle it. My whole life was a waste. I've wasted all these years. I could have been something. And our feeling, she would tell us about all the things she could have been and done and couldn't. Because Dad, she told us, Dad gave me an ultimatum. Take care of the kids and stay home and forget the acting and the hostess job that you were offered and all this other stuff, or I leave. And that was my dad's general feeling when she was crying, which was, hey, I want my life the way I want it. If I have to do things I don't want to do to satisfy the marriage, that's not the way I want to live. We'll go our separate ways. And my feeling was very strong. It's not the way it is. I told him flat out, you make sacrifices in order to have a relationship. You make compromises. It's the whole point of a relationship. You're each not going to get exactly what you want, so you try to come to, you go to a dinner party even if you don't want to, because you haven't been able to go to one and because you've been working with. It was not his feeling at all that he should do that.
How did he respond?
He responded by saying, well, I'm not prepared to do that. My feeling is that you have a relationship. One person controls the show. If I have to do things I don't want to do, even the smallest things, then I don't want to be a part of the relationship.
So it was his way or no way?
It's his way or no way. And he did that, and he was smoking a cigarette, and I remember the scene very well back in Pennington. And I was shocked by the statement, because I realized there, if I pursued it, it could lead to a divorce. If I pursued it, his feeling was he would rather have a divorce than work out even a small thing like a dinner party. To me, it was amazing.
He had total control, or he wanted a divorce?
Right.
And is that
And he
what you
thought that it worked best that way. But that's what kept the relationship going, was that one person knew that this person was in control, or it was over.
Do you think you believe that, or do you think you needed to have that total control, and so you sort of justified it with those kind of statements? How much did you feel that you were killing your dad because of what he was doing to you each, and how much did you feel you were killing your dad in part because of what he did to your mom, and what part was each?
It was not because of what he was doing to me, because I had already decided and had pretty much splintered off from my family, and tried many times. I decided at one point, I don't want another cent, I don't want to have anything to do with it. I tried to be self-supportive. I'm going to marry this girl and go have my own life. And it was my mother actually telling me, okay, you do that, but it's not because of what your father is doing. I want you to know that. That would anger me and bring me back in to help her out, because I realized she was so disillusioned and fucked up over the whole thing, that she would actually think that. If she would have just said, I realize it's really strenuous, your dad is really doing all these things, it's terrible, I agree with you, maybe you should go off and do your own thing, it would have been a lot easier for me to do it. I needed her agreement that there was a problem, and there was none. And I didn't think about it for a long time until Eric and I would get together and we would share what was happening in the family. And it was obvious my mother was deteriorating. We didn't want to get to a point where my mother killed herself and my father, we were left to deal with my father. That would be too hard on us almost, because I wouldn't want to. It would be hard on my father, and yet I couldn't let him get away with this, with what I would consider a murder that there was no way anyone would ever find out about.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for my mother's sake, I thought that we did it. We had to come, like I was saying before, we had to make a decision. It was one of the harder ones. It was a separate issue. Okay, these are the reasons my father should be killed. There's no question. What he's doing is impossible to live with for myself, and for myself based on what he's doing to my mother. And
what were the things that he was doing? It's obvious to me that he was doing all kinds of stuff, from totally controlling everybody in the family, being completely cold-blooded about his decisions, considering everyone as sort of an instrument of his own will. And there's a lot of stuff that your dad was doing, including talking about disinheriting you, or actually having said they did disinherit you, I guess, at a couple of points.
Well, that didn't enter into it too much, because I felt like Eric and I could handle it, and he would expect us to handle it. And we were strong, and I still felt he was an ideal father for the longest time, because I felt like our dad can't be with us, and he's strong, he's overpowering, but he gives us advice. Fathers who are friends to their sons, and in his words, like Wimpy, don't give. And he teaches us to be a man, and almost that he had raised us to be able to handle doing this thing that was necessary, and that we could deal with it better than any other 18 or 21-year-old in the country. Because he had trained us like basic training. My 21 years was a basic training course.
To do what?
On how to survive, and how to do what was necessary. And
to survive by living without him, or by telling him to leave?
By living without him.
Mm-hmm.
And that,
because you would never have lived with him anyway. I mean, you never had that father-son closeness anyway. There's no. He had trained you mainly by being a disciplinarian and being tough, not by having a loving bond with you.
Exactly. To survive without having. I felt the bond, though. I felt like I would go back and forth as to whether I was close to my mother or my father. When I really started to see my mother's problems, I'd be much closer to her. I hate my father, and then I'd get away from that. And when he had the problem, the heart condition, and so on, I went in and I watched the Super Bowl with him, and we were close. And after the Calabasas issue, he cried, and we were together, and we were close. The first time he ever cried in front of me, and he felt much more uncomfortable. I used to feel very uncomfortable and cry whenever he told me he loved me, because it was an unusual thing, and I couldn't handle it. And because we were supposed to be man to man, he would say that. He would say it matter-of-factly with no emotion, and it bothered the shit out of me. And I could not talk to him about anything concerning anything emotional without getting too emotional myself. And then it changed. And he became the one that, as I became more comfortable with it, I could bring up the fact, I love you and I'm doing this for this, and he could not handle it. Couldn't talk to me about it. Didn't want to deal with anything like that because it became a genuine emotion. If I expressed a genuine emotion, he would close up, and it would have hurt him. Like it would be a chink in his armor that he couldn't withstand it. And he cried after the Calabasas issue after I said that, Eric, no, I'm very sorry, and I'm sorry for all that trouble that you were caused through this whole issue. And he cried, and he felt for everything. And I think he cried a lot after the Princeton issue. And I came to him and said this and that. But with me, it was very cold. That crying I never saw. He would be very upset if I saw him crying or anything. Then don't cry. And so it came down to that decision, and we decided that my mother could not live without my father. And it was sort of nice for me to hear my cousin Sylvia.
Why did your dad have to die? I know from your mom why he had to die. How about for the two of you? What? It's clear to me how much he totally controlled the two of you, and it's also clear he was when he talked about you when you weren't here. He was very he was derogating about both of you in different ways. I mean, he would be judgmental of you in one way and judgmental of you, Eric, in another way. And it was real clear that at the same time he was saying he expected you, quote, to be men, that he was treating you as if you were disappointments and that you weren't strong enough. And that you were weak in one way and you were weak in another way. And I don't know if that came across and if that was part of what you felt in your relationship with him, that you could never be good enough, you could never do enough.
Sure. He even told Eric that the Calabasas issue and the way he handled it terribly. If he were in charge of it, he could have handled it way better than Eric. He made all kinds of mistakes, and you don't know how to do that either.
And so it wasn't even so much what you did, it was more that you were stupid in how you did it. You did it in an inferior and incompetent way.
But I still don't think it had anything to do with killing him. It had nothing to do with us. It had to do with me realizing a number of things that all culminated, which was, and it could have culminated at any point. And it was just a question of Eric and I getting together and somebody bringing it up and us realizing the value in it, which was, my father had the dream of now going into politics, and it was becoming apparent, and my mother would not be able to handle that. She had expressed over and over again how that would be the worst thing in the world for their relationship. What she wanted was for him to get away from his business and his dictatorship life with business and stressed out and all this other thing, and just sort of retire with her and be with her and get to know her. And if he went into politics, she would again be that shell of a showcase for him, and he would be boom, 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 be very busy, be time-consuming, and that would be his new love, politics instead of business, instead of her.
Instead of an affair.
And it would be his sort of affair, really. He had almost said, I felt like, and now I feel like, he had given up women and taken up politics. It was his new affair. It was just something that would be his passion. He was passionate as well, very passionate man. But not with her. She had expressed in her letters there was no passion. Mm-hmm. And yet, on the outside, everyone thought that their relationship was all passion, all consuming. And it was crazy. But my feeling was that with him deciding to enter into politics, it was her doom. It was over. There was no escape. And Eric and I were he was on the verge of going to UCLA.
No escape from what? When you say no escape from what?
No escape from being separated from my dad in an environment, well, in a relationship where she had no identity, and she was being battered, and she at least felt comfortable in Princeton, New Jersey. And he knew that. And she had her friends, and she had a bonding and a relationship, and she was busy. And he took her out of that and brought her to California, and Eric and I knew it was devastating for her. I mean, it was really her death there. And if he went into politics, it would be another one. And it was just one blow after another, because moving to California was just the worst thing in the world, and he knew it. And
for him, for her?
For her. For him, it was great. He didn't care. It was just continuation of his career and this and that, and his wife was obviously going to go with him. There was no question. He made a thing where he would fly back and forth to New Jersey because he realized that this is a serious thing. His wife might not be able to handle this. I think he realized that. It was obvious, but he was very careful. Kitty, you're going to love it here. Come on. And Kitty was very sincere about the fact, I don't even know why she left. If there was a time for a divorce, that would be the best time to pursue it, because she had a real bond there. It was a real emotional breakup with that community and her. And she had never had a friend out here, had one friend or whatever, and never really saw her that much. And she never inquired into tennis lessons or leagues or community things or nothing. She got involved in this house that Dad was building, and that was it.
We're trying to push her into those kind of things, and for something she just...
And she would say, no, there's not enough money, I have to spend it on the kids.
Push her into,
She believed.
Community activities.
Don't you think she was probably too depressed and felt too powerless?
She was too depressed, and yet but she also, and it's an interesting thing Eric just brought up, she believed, Dad had her convinced, and it was an amazing day when this happened, that they had no money. That he had her convinced that they were poor, and that she could literally not afford to take tennis lessons and do different things for herself and buy herself nice stuff and never get a leather jacket for a couple hundred. I was buying leather $100 jackets on the allowance I was getting easily, and she said she couldn't afford one. She wished she could get one. And I remember a day when I said, come on, Mom, because I had bought something, how can you say I can't afford this when Dad just got a stock bonus of worth $6 million? And she said, and she had no, and his salary is $1.3 million, and she had no idea. She said, what stock? What do you mean his salary is $300,000 or whatever it was?
He totally controlled her.
And she said, how do you know that? That's not true. And because we're cash poor. And I was shocked, and I said I knew it because I worked with the company, and it was right in the stock letter, which I didn't read, that said he got this much stock. And sure, his salary was $300,000 or $500,000, but his bonus every year was $850. No idea. She had no idea. And she did know about the life insurance thing, but that came afterwards. So I realized that he was withholding a tremendous amount of financial information for her. My feeling then was, well, it's obviously in case they get a divorce, he doesn't want her to know what she's worth. But that enabled her to never buy anything, never do anything creative like that.
You see, when you said that, I think you're right about that, but there's another part of it, which is it also enabled him, again, to never allow her to have, your father was a totally controlling man, which meant that in the relationship, like you said, he needed to make all decisions. He needed to have her completely subservient. He needed to take all the will out of her, all the identity out of her, so that she was basically nothing but an extension of him and a shell of a person. So one way of controlling somebody so that they never develop any sense of identity, you tell them they have no money, they can't buy things, they don't have the ability to go and do community activities, they don't have the money to go out and develop an identity. It's a way of keeping total control of someone. So it wasn't only controlling the flow of information, but by telling her that they had no money, it was also a way to keep her totally imprisoned and totally unable to develop any strength. If she had a sense of money, she might have also had a sense of freedom. She might have also had a sense of being able to leave, to get away from him, to escape him. If she had a sense of no money and no power, and emotionally she was really stripped of all of her identity, then it would put her totally under his control, which is real clearly what I think ended up happening with your mom. So I think you're right that your dad, in case he got a divorce, didn't want to know how much money he had, but I think even more, your father's whole instinct